I went into a dark place. I actually had suicidal thoughts. And I remember for 3 days in a row, I was standing in a balcony thinking, okay, I'm just going to jump. But on the third day, I told myself, as long as you just do, you take action, you build momentum. With that momentum, one door opens and the second door opens, and now we're here. Fortunately, we've raised millions of pounds, and our revenues are in the millions. Lastly, I would really recommend or highly encourage you to work on. I think that has to be something that you start immediately today.
Hi, I'm Luis, and today I'm speaking with Asim Amin, founder of the HR platform Plumm. Asim came to the UK 10 years ago with no money, no visa, and no connections. But he had something far more important. He had an idea and a very strong sense of purpose. Having experienced mental health struggles himself, Asim has since dedicated his life to foster mental health support for others. This episode is about his personal journey of building a company as a foreigner and what advantages that brings with it. Asim gave very actionable tips on how to get an idea from 0 to 1. So if you're thinking about starting a business, then this is for you. Back to the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, by way of introduction,
I always think that people are very much shaped by their early experience. And my question is like, what is your earliest memory or experience that you think has an impact on what you're doing today?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm also super excited. Thank you so much for your kind words. You have absolutely made my day, and hopefully that just is going to keep on pushing me to keep doing and sharing what I do. What's inspired me for what I'm doing today? Um, my mother. So, growing up, my mother suffered from severe depression. She's a completely different person now. She started seeking therapy. She didn't stop there. She became a therapist herself. So that really gave me the insight in both the negative and the positive aspects when one addresses their mental health. So obviously Plumm started as a mental health
Yeah.
platform, and now we've expanded into the whole HR space. But the reason I wanted to get into the mental health space was, yeah, one, because I had the lived experiences of my mother. And then number two was also I had my own fair share of mental ill health. So, I mean, growing up, I've been an entrepreneur at heart, and I've had many other businesses. I started off at the age of 17 from online gaming and then dabbled into digital marketing, food and beverage. I was in the property sector for a very long time as well. 2016 is when I invested a lot of money in the property sector. I lost a lot of money and I went into a really dark place. I believe I was fortunate that I had my mom's experience. So I started taking care of my own mental health. And when I came out of that headspace, I really wanted to get into a line of business where my only motivator wouldn't just be the top line or the bottom line of the business, something that would be bigger than me, bigger than my mom even. So I started exploring the whole telehealth, telemedicine side. So a lot of platforms and apps that would connect you with GPs and doctors and specialists, but the
Yeah.
whole mental health space was not as robust as we see it today.
Mm.
So I started exploring the space and started developing the platform. And mid of 2018 is when we finally launched the platform. And yeah, the rest is history, as they say. And here I
Yeah.
am.
No, very exciting. And then also, I think the personal relationship that you have to the top, it really feeds into like what you serve in the end, because knowing your like reason on why to do things, I think it's a very good compass also that guides you in that direction. And why you were saying you lived in Dubai before, and why did you move to the UK then, and what were your aspirations that you came with?
That's a question that I get asked. I think more than any other question.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish people would ask me what's my favorite food more than that. But yeah, I think the reason I also get asked that question is because Dubai has become a very aspirational destination. A lot of people, especially the younger generation, wants to move to Dubai, and rightly so. I think Dubai is phenomenal. Dubai is always going to be home. This is where I grew up. My family, my mom and dad still live in Dubai. There were two fundamental reasons I wanted to shift and move to the UK. So the first reason was because I was in the mental health space. As you can appreciate, there's a lot of stigma around mental health, even here in the UK. But if you look at the stigma in the Middle East, or in the Asian communities. So I'm ethnically Indian. So in our communities, the stigma around mental health is even more than it is in the Western world. So that was one main aspect. So I'm like, okay, because there's a lot of stigma, there's going to be a big blocker for me to be able to expand and change the narrative. The second thing is also the startup ecosystem. So obviously Dubai has a great startup ecosystem, it's thriving, it's growing. But in my personal opinion, I believe the Western world or UK, US has a much better, much more robust ecosystem when it startup ecosystem. So really, fundamentally, they were the two main reasons when I said, okay, I have to do a shift. I'll be honest with you, I was looking at America as well. I did go to New York. I did like an accelerator in New York, but then I finally, yeah, decided. I just felt somehow, yeah, I just felt the energy. I just felt, uh, yeah, really the belonging, the sense of belonging in London more than anywhere else. So, yeah,
Yeah.
moved to London.
From my own experience, like having lived in like different places, what do you think does it give to you as an advantage as well, like to have position of a like foreigner, like being from a different area? Because like from my experience, it's like you are much more sensitive to certain things that other people don't see because they grew up with this. And yeah, how did you experience that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that sensitivity, also resilience. So I think that sensitivity is pretty beautiful. So for me, every single time, so I've had many moments in the last 5 years that I've moved to the UK that I've been able to um, have first moments. So the first time I sat on a bus, first time I walked in a park, first time I had a coffee in the city, first time I did something. So I've had many first moments, and for that I'm ever so grateful. But also, I'm also able to see this country or the city from a different lens. And sometimes when you are born into something, um, and again, this doesn't apply for everyone, but but if I were to generalize it, if you're born into something, you do. I mean, it just becomes second nature, and you kind of maybe sometimes just take things for granted. So for me, it's all about, when so especially these days, I've seen a lot of people on social media, especially entrepreneurs, saying how the UK is bad and you should leave the UK and you should move to America and the ecosystem is not
Yeah,
good and the taxation is high and whatever. But for me, from my perspective, everything is just great because I never had all the things that I have today. The UK has fundamentally changed my life. It's changed my family's life. So for me, I mean, it just allows me to be that much more grateful because I'm just
yeah.
seeing this country from a different lens, and it's allowing me to have those first moments. But also, I think resilience is key because a lot of people when they move to a different country, for the most part, mostly they leave their families and their friends behind. So navigating like a new space where there's a language barrier or the cultural barrier, and still pushing through, I think that also becomes a superpower in my opinion,
That's true.
because you're forced to become that much more resilient. Like you also don't have a choice. And off the back of that resilience, your probability of success simply increases. So yeah, I think people moving and living in different countries. I think going on a holiday is different. You don't really get to experience a country from that lens, but moving and living in a different country, I think that is just phenomenal in terms of your mindset and your growth.
Like it really resonates with me because I think it's very interesting because I come from Germany and like just now experiencing like the kind of constraints that I grew up with, and I would have never experienced like never thought that it would take like 28 years for me to realize this like what I have been conditioned. People in the UK they say like, oh, they're so closed off and everything, and for me like coming from Germany it's actually the opposite. So it's like as you say, it's always a matter of like where you're coming from. Yeah, so I
Perspective, yeah, Lewis. I think that's really interesting. Perspective changes everything. Another example I'll give you: everyone in the UK says the weather is really bad, but for me, I don't see that because I came from a place where we didn't have four seasons. So for me, it's just
yeah.
beautiful. I'm like, oh shit, there's rain. It's cold. It's hot. The usually spring, winter, autumn, summer. So I think for me, again, like, and so many times when I'm walking out on the street and I see people complain, oh, it's gray and it's raining. But then the UK also has a very beautiful landscape. I mean, the nature here is just beautiful. Now, if it wasn't for the specific amount of rain or the specific amount of sunshine or lack of sunshine, we wouldn't also, have the nature that it has. Because I also come from a desert, so for me, everything is just positive. So again, it's just perspective.
Yeah. And then, so you were saying in 2018, you started your whole journey with Plum, and I think like it has been quite a journey with a lot of like lessons and also a lot of pivots. Also in terms of product, like can you like just give us a quick run through how you developed it and like what it is today?
Yeah, lots of pivots. We've rebranded. We were not called Plum, first of all. We were called Healing Clouds, and we were B2C, so going direct to consumer. And this is pre-COVID, by the way. So obviously 2018 was pre-COVID. And it was very difficult. We quickly understood that, therapy and coaching is actually an expensive proposition, and not a lot of people actually have not gone into therapy and coaching because people simply cannot afford. Sadly, it's just easier to have 3 pints of beer and then just forget about your problems just for the moment, rather than actually fixing, working on the core issue. Yeah, so that was one fundamental issue, and then we said, okay, let's now pivot and move into a B2B space. However, when we started speaking to corporates just before COVID, it was very difficult for us to convince them why is it important for them to take care of their employees'
Yeah.
mental well-being. But then COVID happened. We all went into lockdown, and I think I don't need to tell you, like, we all know the demand or the conversation around mental health has just exploded and continues to rise. So that was, COVID was a silver lining, and we pivoted, and everything was going okay up until 2 years ago, where we've seen an economic downturn as well. A lot of companies have laid off people, and that is just I think it's like an ongoing exercise. I think even now 2025, I believe, with AI agents coming into place, I think, yeah, I think more layoffs. Perhaps we might see more layoffs and so on. So the economic downturn then hit us, and it hit the entire world. And I think what really happened for us was a lot of companies, because they were in survival mode, they started saying, listen, we only have enough, we just have this much money to pay salaries because we're
Yeah.
laying off people, and mental health was looked as a benefit. So we cannot afford a benefit. We need to now look at business critical items. And, initially for the first 6 months, I was like really fighting. No, you're not thinking twice before you're paying for a CRM system, but the
Yeah.
people behind the CRM system, you don't care about their mental well-being. However, sometimes you have to lose a few battles to win the war. So we then decided to, okay, look inside, look inwards, and what we can do differently. And then that's when we took a decision to, okay, let's expand into the HR space, becoming business critical, but also allowing us to look at the entire life cycle of an employee from the time they interview until the time they exit, and everything in between. However, because mental health is our mission, what we decided was we subsidize mental health. So if you buy our HR platform, you don't have to pay for mental health services anymore. Because if that is the problem, if you say mental health is important, but you don't have the budget for mental health, okay, we solve that problem for you. You no longer have to pay for mental health services. You just have to
Wow.
buy our HR platform, and we subsidize it for you. Because I strongly believe collectively with my team that mental health support should be a basic fundamental human right, and that's how we're solving it.
No, I think it's great to hear, and also because then like we're exactly at the point that you also mentioned that it's difficult sometimes to convince them that it is important. So, what are your arguments, kind of like, or your how you convince them?
The honest truth is, and I'm generalizing again, of course, not everybody thinks like this, but for the most part, there's a lot there's a lot of talk and less action. And what I mean by less action is that people not putting the money where their mouth is. I think that is really important, because you need social businesses to impact the world and change the world, and that requires money. So that is why we did a lot of arguments from that perspective. If your employees' mental well-being is not in check, then they'll be less productive, and there'll be a lot more absence and so on, and it's going to negatively impact your business. And if your employees are thriving, then your business is also thriving. However, because mental health is not like physical health, Physical health, if you fractured your arm and if you've got a cast around it, people can see it. Okay, visually,
Mm.
if I can see it, then I believe it.
Yeah.
Because mental health, sadly, you can't see things behind. It's very difficult to articulate that. So the reality is, I was going through this process where, the ROI and, how important it is and how it impacts your absence data and all that. But yeah, I just felt it was a losing battle. So for us now, we're not even arguing that anymore. We're just saying we're selling a HR platform, anything from ATS to payroll to whatever you think about HR operations. We have all the services. But when you buy Plumm, you get mental health subsidized and you get mental health for free anyway. And then when you position it like that, for us now, what we've seen is people say, oh, yeah, yeah, of course, it's very important. We know it's very important, but the budget is the issue. So if your platform already has it, fantastic. So that has also now become our USP. So if we did not pivot into the HR space, it was in at least in our personal experience, it was becoming more and more difficult every single time. So I chose not to fight that battle.
Yeah. Because I guess now also like companies that work with you, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess this is also how they attract new people, right? With like saying, okay, we
Correct.
have the software and like we can provide mental health treatments. I think has a quite a big impact on like hiring processes.
100%. And like of course, as you know, the world has changed. I mean, employees don't only want, of course, salary and money is important, but they want to know if the company culture is good, if the company really respects and supports their employees. And so employee advocacy is a huge aspect, and that impacts people leaving the business and staying in the business for the longest period of time. So definitely, I think yes, salary is important, but the growth possibilities and joining a company that really cares has
Yeah.
become more and more fundamental for everyone.
And from your own experience, what do you think is the most common factor that negatively impacts mental health at the workplace?
There are many, but if
Yeah.
I had to put one, if I had to say one, I think that would be communication. I think companies fail to communicate openly, so candidly, and quickly. I think there's a lot of red tape when you talk about when there's things that are communicated to their people, what you can and cannot say, and for the most part, it's said in things. For the most part, it's communicated when things are already too late.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to understand that you build trust, not not so much in the good time, but actually in the bad time. So the people will trust you even more so if you're
Yeah.
able to communicate things that are not only going right in the business but also things that are going wrong in the business. And I
Yeah.
think people deserve that. I think you have, as a company, you have a fundamental responsibility towards your people, because their livelihoods are connected to your business, and they've trusted you and they've trusted the team around you to be, to I mean, the last thing you can show them is that honesty and that decency. So I think, yeah, maybe communication is the number one factor. And if companies communicated with their people in a much more better manner, people would be able to feel that much more protected and have that psychological safety within
Yeah.
the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, it also requires a certain openness at the workplace. But how do you deal with like the communication at a workplace? Because I feel like when you're treating it with like external like therapy, it feels like you're just putting band-aid over it, right? But then like next time something happens at the workplace, because probably you cannot really interfere at the workplace, right? Because it's not your business. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, you can't really deal with that unless and until the company itself wants to fix that problem, you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean, obviously, we track a lot of data. Everything is anonymized, but we've seen that companies where the top management is vested in the mission, we see the difference between when the companies are not vested in the mission. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's only so, like you absolutely are right. If an individual is going through something, they speak to a therapist or a coach, but then the therapist or the coach really cannot change how the company
Yeah.
operates.
Yeah.
So I think for companies to realize that, I think is super important. For the managers to also get trained and upskill on how they should communicate and how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, and all that. But really, on a maybe that's not the best thing, but for a company, but really on an individual level, for that individual to also understand if this is the right place for them or not.
Yeah.
Because I think that self realization is important and setting boundaries are super important. So
Yeah.
if something is not serving you,
That's true.
you have to have your boundaries. And I think from that perspective, not that we're asking people to leave jobs, but change is important. I mean, something needs to change. You cannot keep on living your life with anxiety and stress. We all have anxiety and stress. Obviously, managing them in a better way is important. And that's why companies are upping their game, providing mental health support and all these other aspects, simply because, I mean, the companies have to do better. So it is a bandage for the moment, but you're also helping that individual realize what is right, what is wrong, perhaps, and setting boundaries. And of course, no therapist or coach is actually going to tell you what to do, but that's helping them realize for
Mm.
themselves what is
Yeah.
the right thing to do.
Yeah. With your own personal experience as well that you have with like having encountered like mental health issues, like, and now having leading a business, I can imagine that's also like very, very difficult, like to handle this. And then because I heard you once saying that like the barrier to thriving is only your own mindset, right? And I think, I mean, it's something that resonated a lot with me. And so I wanted to ask, how do you personally work with this, like to overcome like mental blocks and to set yourself up for growth?
I think me being an immigrant in this country has really helped from that perspective. So, we spoke about immigrants leave their families and friends behind. Obviously, that was my case as well. And my case was maybe a little bit different as well because I went through a lot of financial issues. And then I really came to a place where I had to make a change. And when I said I had to make a change, when I said I went into a dark place, I
Mm.
actually had suicidal thoughts. Uh,
Wow.
and I remember for 3 days in a row, I was standing in a balcony thinking, okay, I'm just going to jump. But on the third day, I told myself, okay, either I jump or I do something about it. Thankfully, I'm here. And obviously, I took the other option. But really, for me, that mental block isn't eh, it's not really a block. Like I've really pushed myself in a space where either I make it happen or I die trying. So and I think that's a really powerful space for
Mm.
me, especially like it serves me to be in. Where when I moved to the UK, I looked around me and I knew that I don't have the right education, the right I didn't grow up with this support system or the ecosystem, but I just told myself I'm just going to outwork anyone that comes across, who I come across. So I think that mindset has just helped me perform. Today's a Sunday, and we're doing this podcast. Obviously, you're also technically working on a Sunday, but and not something that I advocate to anyone else. But this is just me. This is how I want to operate, and it's serving me correct. It has served me really nicely, and I'm going to continue to do that. So for
Yeah.
me, that mental block is just a reminder. I just keep reminding myself where I was before I moved to the country and where I am today. And how did I get here today? I got here today because of the mindset, because of the hard work, because of the consistency. So if I want to get to a next stage in the next 5 years, I know the formula is pretty simple: hard work, mindset, hard work, consistency.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm able to keep on applying that for the rest of my life, I think I should be okay. So it's
Yeah.
just a constant reminder. And I think, you know, um, no matter who we are, we go through our peaks and troughs, highs and lows. I think it's a part of, normal part of life. And it's okay to be on a low. It's okay, for example, to not go for that run and you feel it's raining and it's too cold. But as long as you pick yourself back up again, I think you're okay. So consistency is the key. So I just, sometimes when I'm not able to push through and that mindset is not helping me, I just tell myself it's also okay because I pick
Yeah.
myself up. And as long as consistently I'm able to do it, I think there's a great compounding effect to that.
Yeah. That's very inspiring because like you also have stacked like this kind of this undeniable proof, right? Like already that you can like when you follow this path that you can actually get where you want to get, right? And I think this probably helps a lot. I remembered when you stepped down from the Plum podcast. So I was wondering if this was actually like one of those actions where you were like, actually to grow, I need to step out of the way.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't really have any methodology or I actually don't follow anything.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that smart. I just keep going. So for example, stepping down from the Plum podcast, I did a few. There were two reasons. So one reason was I just felt that I'm not the subject matter expert. And I felt that the host should be a subject matter expert if they're speaking to HR people. And then, secondly, because I was not a subject matter expert, I was also honestly getting bored. It
Okay.
was not fun anymore because
Yeah.
it was not a subject that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
This subject now that we're talking about, that is interesting to me. If we talk about entrepreneurship, if we talk about, the whole movement, immigration, raising funds,
Yeah.
whatever, building businesses, because that's what I do. So that was interesting to me. So I'm like, okay, if I'm not happy, if it's not first, if it's not serving me,
Yeah.
so my boundaries, so it's not serving me, and if it's not fulfilling me, then I'm not going to be the best at it. If I'm not going to be the best at it, I should not be doing it, because anything you do has to be gold standard. If it's not gold standard, then what's the point? So that's when I took the decision. I said, okay, fine, I'm not going to do it. But it also comes from doing. So I think doing is important. Planning and strategizing, methodologies, and there's too many things that you can do. Like social media is just full of it. YouTube is full of it as well. But I think it's just by taking action. So I took an action. I did it for a while. I took stock. It's not working. Then I do something else. Then I keep. So, mindset, hard work, consistency. Like I just keep applying the same thing. Like, yeah. So I've done that. From the pivots that we had in the business as well. It's only by doing. Like every morning I wake up, I say, okay, what am I going to do today? And that whatever I do has to be a little bit better than yesterday. Failure, I think, is a key. I think is a fundamental part of growth. I think it's super important to fail. Maybe I have a slight advantage because I didn't graduate from school, so I failed every class every time. It was just my mom and my teachers thought I would never do anything in life.
Wow.
So I think maybe I have a different relationship with failure. It's just easier for me to fail because fundamentally the reason I've also reached here is because I wake up, I'm like, okay, what is the failure point today? Off the back of it, okay, what am I learning? And I think the more you do something, it's like any other muscle, right? The more you do something, you just get better at it. So I'm able to identify a core issue faster than most people around me simply because I've failed more than most people around me. So then you're able to identify the core issue because the ultimate goal off the back of any failure is that, okay, how do I not fail at this thing again? And that's it. So that podcast fundamentally was, I think, one of the thing as well. It was not working for me. It was not serving me. Okay, how do I not fail from this? And I wanted to do a podcast that is around entrepreneurship, around immigrants, because I didn't want to fail again, meaning I didn't want to just do like a podcast which is just speaking to founders, because then again, maybe I would feel I'm not truly connected to just any founder. So I'm like, okay, what is my sub niche so I don't fail at this again? Okay. And it was just by doing, I did that. So when I even started my podcast, it was just speaking to any founders. And then just by doing, I realized, okay, I'm also going to get really bored of this really quickly. So find a sub niche and then spoke to immigrant founders. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just by doing. So just keeping just keep going, just keep doing. And I think just one last thing to add as well. Fundamentally, I strongly believe a lot of a lot of startups fail because their founders stop. And not everyone has the ability to keep going. But
Yeah.
if you do have the ability and the luxury to keep going because eventually you will succeed. It might take a month, it might take 10 months or 10 years, but it will happen. It's not rocket science. I don't think success is rocket science.
So I'm here on a skilled worker visa myself, so I'm asking very selflessly, like, what would you say to someone that comes to the UK as a foreigner and has the ambition to start a company? Like, what would you tell him to get started? And for instance, also like, are there any programs or like that you could recommend that help?
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations. I think you've done the right move. I think UK is amazing. Fundamentally, like I said, it's changed my life, and I have the aspiration, or the motivation to help as many people as I can, and hopefully, it changes your life and your family's lives as well. So there are many programs. I think accelerator programs here in the UK are great. I actually joined two. One was the NatWest Accelerator. Second was the London and Partners Accelerator. The NatWest Accelerator, they've now made it only virtual. I think there's in person as well now.
Yeah,
But yeah, the NatWest Accelerator and the London and Partners Accelerator, I will highly recommend. And what you should do now, because you're on a skilled visa, I think you should start a side hustle, because side hustles these days have become
yeah,
easier than they ever were. This Your podcast is a good segue into that side
yeah,
hustle as well. Um, and also do check, you know, maybe it's a little bit premature, but what is your contract, your employment contract, what you can and cannot do. I think maybe that's just important to know from a legal standpoint. But the reality is, it has become, in my opinion, easier than it was to move on to a innovator founder visa. Because when I got the innovator founder visa, there was a minimum investment threshold. But now they've removed the investment threshold, which is fantastic.
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of people are also trying to bootstrap their business and not necessarily raise investments.
yeah,
So removing the investment threshold, I think it's a great move, because then it also allows so many other people to start a business. So yeah, I mean, there are three investment bodies currently. I can't recall their name, but I think one of them is Innovate Fund, or yeah, they're three. There used to be a lot more endorsing bodies.
yeah,
Now the endorsing bodies have reduced, so you've got three. It's a quick Google search will show you that. But I think just speaking to them, just having like a high level conversation with them, just understanding what do they really need for you to get endorsed, because you need to have a business plan, you need to have a financial model, 3 years, 3 to 5 years financial model, just to prove that your business is scalable, viable. So if you can do that, just understand what they need, and off the back of it, I would suggest the time is now. There's enough information out there for you to be able to learn where you need to, what business you want to get into. Honestly, there's a lot of people say yes, raising money is difficult, but in the UK, what I've also seen, I don't know if it's like this in Germany, but they have a lot of tax benefits to investors as well, like the SCIS and EIS schemes, where when
okay,
an investor invests in a fast growing startup, they get like 30% or 50% tax rebate, which is fantastic. And now recently the government has also extended that. So getting into any accelerator, NatWest or London and Partners, I would highly recommend. There are three endorsing bodies. Reaching out to the endorsing bodies and understanding what are the criteria for you to get endorsed, and move to an innovative founder visa, and really starting a side hustle. Uh, Lastly, I would really, really recommend or highly encourage you to work on your personal brand. I think that has to be something that you start
yeah,
immediately today, not tomorrow. LinkedIn has become a gold mine these days. You've obviously reached out to me on LinkedIn,
yeah,
but your co-founder or your first employees or your investors or any other opportunity. Yeah, I think personal brand has become so much more important than it ever did in the past. And you as a founder, especially, yeah, I mean, like, people buy from people, people don't
yeah,
buy from companies. If
yeah.
a founder does not have social presence, I think it's going to be very, very difficult in this day and age. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to also take this offline, and we can have a proper one-to-one conversation. But again, I would encourage you just to start. When I started, yeah, I had no idea how I'm going to do this. I didn't have money or the visa to move to this country. I was on a visit visa, so I was
Yeah.
going back and forth on a visit visa because I hold an Indian passport. I couldn't even come into the country, so I was just going back and forth, just meeting people, and didn't have money. I was living on a £3 budget per day for food. It was horrible, but I think I strongly believe if you do something with the right intent, you do attract the right people and the right circumstances. As long as you just do, you take action, you build momentum. With that momentum, one door opens and the second door opens, and now we're here. Fortunately, we've raised millions of pounds, and
Yeah.
we're earning. Our revenues are in the millions. But yeah, I mean, it all started from me taking action. So yeah, I take action.
No, I think, I mean, to me, it's super empowering to hear this, also to know that there's like the entry barrier is, as you said, like is as low as possible. You don't need permission, right? Like you can just like actually just keep going, as you're saying. And then, so we have a closing tradition, like it's called the open letter, and you can address an one sentence letter to a person or a specific group of people. So like to future entrepreneurs, to your parents, to your younger self, and like who would that be, and what would you say?
I think maybe that would be to my younger self, and I would say, what I say. There's so many things I want to say to my younger self, but I think maybe I would tell my younger self that just hang in there, because things will work out so much better than you ever have imagined. Just hang in there, keep going.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Asim. I really, really, yeah, enjoyed this conversation, and also, thank you for being so open. I think it's like a real inspiration for like people who want to come to a different country and like see what you've achieved. So, like, just speaking about myself as well. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with me.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.